And if you study the ancient Romans and the Babylonians and every other major culture, the Druids, they all had stylized human sacrifice in the gladiatorial events, in the Aztec and Mayan kingdoms in Mesoamerica. We've talked about it so much. Emperors always went crazy when societies became decadent and corrupt and began publicly murdering whoever they wanted, engaging in all sorts of bloody, bizarre rituals, because 1% of the population, and this has scientifically been studied and proven, around 1%, they're now finding, because of the U.S. sick culture and media, that they're creating artificial psychopaths. So the number's a little bit higher here in the U.S. and a few other nations. But on average, about 1 out of 100, about 1 out of 20 is a sociopath, just doesn't care about you. But 1 out of 100 is a psychopath and enjoys killing and stealing and murdering. And whereas it sounds like absolute abject horror for you or I to want to grab some woman off the street, take her to some shack or some basement, torture her for 6 weeks, rape her, and then kill her, that is beautiful to the psychopath. But who gets busted? The low-level psychopath who's always in love with themselves and on an insane power trip and has these dark visions while they're killing and torturing, the only time they feel alive. They are the unintelligent or the uncoordinated or what psychiatry calls the uncontrolled psychopath. And sometimes you'll have a somewhat controlled psychopath who may kill 10, 20, 30, 40 people before they finally get sloppy. They may kill one person every 6 months for a decade, and then they get more sloppy, and it's one person every month, and then 2 people a week, and then they start driving around drunk with machetes and just hacking people up on the side of the road, and then they finally get caught. And they tend to come across as being truthful. They tend to come off as charismatic. They're in love with themselves. They believe what they're doing is good. It's like Ted Bundy had the judge liking him in his murder trial. Ever seen the film footage of that? With the judge saying, "Young man, I'd like to know you. I'd like, to have you as a son-in-law if you hadn't turned to evil." I mean, that's how he tricked that judge, because that judge was judging him by his mindset that he was somebody who just went bad, and was loving the compliments and everything that Ted Bundy was giving him. See, that's the public buying into Republican, buying into Democrat, buying into these psychopaths. So I'm going to come back, finish up with this, get more into the economy, and then your phone calls at 1-800-259-9231. Because I want to break down how they're building the world. I mean, I've mentioned this, but I want to go into more detail. How they're building the whole planet as a wonderland, an amusement park for psychopaths, control freaks, scum. And they're also turning the world into their environment. The fool on the hill sees the magic, the majesty of life, and appreciates the simple things. And loves the goodness. But the dark and controlling and uncreative, they seek to dominate and enslave the good. They are threatened by the light. They seek to build prisons and armored fortresses in the midst of the common people in their village, and to erect offices and enforcers and bullies to go out and rule over the slaves. And that's basically what we face as a society. 1% of the population are psychopaths. If you're in a crowd of 1,000 people, there are 10 psychopaths among you. But psychopaths also tend to congregate, and the more intelligent types combine their forces and their strength and are controlled. And they can control their impulses for blood and destruction and raw, dark power until they get into positions where they can effectively exercise that power. And that's why with a Stalin or a Hitler or a Mao, that when they get total power and no one is opposing them in their nation, they suddenly start attacking their neighbors and overtaking them, and then the next neighbor and the next neighbor. They have to have it all. And then they start killing their own internal population and stealing the wealth until it destroys the middle class, the engine of their original power, and their empire begins to implode. But the modern psychopaths are so intelligent, so controlled, that they've had sociologists and psychiatrists and anthropologists study this, behavioral psychologists, and they write papers and textbooks about how they can keep their grid in place and ensure that it doesn't collapse, and how they can head off at the pass every way that free humanity has struggled out of their iron grip in the past. And they call that the final revolution. It's been written by many historians and many philosophers going back 3,000-4,000 years, up until current dates, that for kings and queens and their courts and the elites of old, no matter where they were, what color they were, what, quote, race they were, we're all the human race, we all behave similar, all behave the same over and over again. History repeats itself time and time again because people behave the same. Groups combine forces and behave the same. We behave the same in group psychology and mob psychology. And it's been said that kings and queens and elites, war is their profession. If you look at British nobility or French nobility, Japanese nobility, they didn't work. They didn't work in the fields. They didn't go to a 9-to-5 job. But they would engage in battle, in conquering, in conquest. That was their profession. In intelligence, in subterfuge, in espionage. And they have studied it for thousands of years, and every empire passes on to the next empire its combined knowledge of control. Thousands of years ago, textbooks were written by Julius Caesar and by those before him on statecraft and how to control populations and how to dumb populations down. And they could write those textbooks, write those books to the gentry, to the nobles, to the elites, to their families, to their power blocks, and laugh in those books about how the middle class and the working class and the slave class, the bond class, never understood it and never saw it coming. And it's become a religion of the elite to detest us and to hate us and to look down on us. And that contempt grows after generation for generation, where they get the good medicine, they get the good food, they get plenty of sleep. And we're the little people, the little slaves, feet shorter than them, starving, more genetic disorders, more diseases, or so the elite thought. Then they discovered that their inbreeding and their elitism actually made them weaker and made the people stronger. So they built up even greater scientific systems of control. And now, in the name of environmentalism, they are setting up a world tax on breathing, on all mammal and all animal and all insect respiration. They are making that a crime. They are listing carbon dioxide as a poisonous chemical, when it is one of the 4 life-giving elements, one of the 4 needed: water, sunlight, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Without those, carbon-based life forms cannot live. Imagine a world government that taxes and regulates and demonizes the very air we breathe as they create a new religion. They take your religions away from you, they discredit them, they destroy them, they pull them down from within, they mock them, they set up pimps in their places to discredit them, and then they bring you a new religion, something that makes sense fundamentally, to be a good steward, to take care of the earth, to not hurt life forms around you, and to hence not hurt yourself with toxic waste and chemicals. When in reality, they are the authors of the toxic waste. They are the authors of the true crime, the vandalism of the very genetic code of the planet through the cross-species genetic creations and 1,000+ other abominations. They are killing the earth. They are hurting the earth. They are irrevocably damaging it while telling us that we need to tax the very air we breathe. That's their own statement. They move against free speech. They move against the internet. They try to bring back in the fairness doctrine. They put in their electronic fraudulent voting machines on record to be stealing elections. They militarize the police. They put in military control grids so that there is no escape from them. So that every avenue is blocked. Every avenue of escape is blocked. Soon, they believe their control grid, their invincible control grid, their invincible prison will be in place. The whole world a prison. And they, the wardens, the insane running the asylum, where they can have their way with you in whatever way they see fit.